Hello, everyone. This is Professor Schachter, and this is our lecture on Chapter 10, the media chapter. Now, full disclosure, I am not a media professor. I didn't work in media planning. I was in creative, brand management, creative strategy. Those are my strengths. However, I've been associated enough with media to be able to explain to you the basics of the chapter. The chapter also has some limitations. It does a very good job of traditional media and explaining the terms, their applications, media objectives, and so on and so forth. Excuse me one second. However, it doesn't do a really good job of doing anything about the way media is today. It's not linear. We DVR things, we watch things on demand, and that kind of creates more complexity for planning a media delivery. So what we're going to do is I'm going to load up the PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to point out to you what's important for the quiz, which is also going to be our last quiz, quiz number 7. It's going to be on chapter 10, and it will be written right after my presentation and uploaded. Forgive me, I still have this horrible cough. It's been a rough semester. Anyway, what's also important about the terminology is that this terminology is the same for digital, more or less, as it is for traditional media. Don't forget that digital media came out of the traditional media, so they didn't change much of the terminology. All right, so without any further need for introduction, I'm going to load up the PowerPoint for Chapter 10, and we can start going over what's important or what you should know. So I'm going to first share my screen. And I'm going to load the PowerPoint presentation now. I'm going to be coughing a lot. Seems like the later I get in the day, the more I cough. Okay. So this is what we're going to go over. We're going to explain how to develop a media plan. We're definitely going to give examples of media objectives and how to make them align with marketing communications objectives and marketing objectives. And those are the main focus of this. Okay. So one of the things about media is that you have to understand is that media is always going to be a compromise. In other words, no brand has enough money to give you to do everything you could possibly do. So media planning has always been a game of getting the most out of the budget. Okay. So do you want to reach fewer people more often, or do you want to reach more people less often? That's basically the core of media. And then it's also about identifying which media vehicles and channels and platforms, in the case of digital, work best with your target audience. And that is the essentials of media. So let's go through this. This chart right here is no longer relevant, has been relevant for years. But Procter and Gamble does spend over $4 billion a year on media, buying media time to advertise all their brands. So these are definitions you must know. So media planning is a series of decisions involved in delivering promotional message to prospective customers. What does that mean? That means that you choose where the commercial, the video, um, the print, the paid search, whatever you're doing, you're deciding how much to allocate. And these are where the decisions are made. How much you allocate to each channel. Okay. One of the things you're going to take into consideration is going to be consumer behavior. Where are they? What do they read? Where do they click? How do they engage with media? What shows on TV do they watch? If it's outdoor, what areas do they walk or drive in? And like marketing, like marketing communications, like everything else, like advertising, like public relations, as we'll see, these disciplines have of their own objectives and they have their own strategies. So basically, is you have an objective to get from, let's say, from where you are, if you're in the city, to FIT, or if you live someplace else, to FIT, and that's your objective. Your strategy is how are you going to do it? The fastest way, let's say, the fastest way could also be the most expensive way. Helicopter. If you live in Queens, it can be helicopter to FIT, but that's going to be very expensive. The subway is very affordable, but it's not as quick. So I'm using this as an example to say that there are many different approaches to how to implement or achieve your objectives. The deal, though, is based on how much money do you have to spend to achieve those objectives. The term medium is what general category of available delivery systems means, very simply put, is the category of media. So, for example, you have TV. Okay, remember, it's a traditional chapter. So, TV is the medium, but there are many channels on the cable box, History Channel. Uh, and so, the History Channel is not a medium, it's a vehicle. So, medium could be outdoor, right? But vehicles could be billboards, transit ads on subways, um, maybe ads on those poles you see in the city, those things with all the information and stuff. They used to be phone booths, or you can put them on top of taxis. So medium is very general. You have print, outdoor, digital, video or TV, and yeah, I think that's all of them. I think I got all of them. So medium is just a general broad category. Okay. A media vehicle is a specific. So it could be a network, ABC, CBS, NBC, or it could be even a show on the network. So it could be one of my old-time favorite shows, which I was still watching reruns. Big Bang Theory. That's a vehicle. So vehicles have specific names. Reach. So these are all the definitions you need to know for the quiz, right? You do need to know all of them. Reach is the number of different audience members exposed to at least once to media vehicle in a specific period. Okay, that's a very nice way of saying how many different people are we going to reach? Reach, right? Uh, um, at least once. So, um, so if I were, as I'm doing this lesson, I think there are 19 people in this class. So my reach to reach 100% of people is 19. Okay, 19 different people. Coverage is the potential audience. So in this case, the potential audience for our classroom is also 19. Okay, let's say for New York City would be 8 million. Now, if only 10 of you watch this presentation, then the reach is 10, 10 out of 19, right? And the coverage would be still 19. So 19 is so the coverage is the total number of people in a market. So a market could be New York City, could be a classroom. You define the market. It could be the entire United States. Okay. And so reach is just once, where frequency is the number of times. So for example, let's say I have to pay to do this video and reach the students in this class, but and it costs, let's say, $100 per student. I'm making this up, and it'll cost me $1,900 to reach everyone. Total coverage, 100%, 19 students, but I only have $2,000 to spend, I may say, well, if I reach everyone once, it may not have impact. So what I might do is spend only $1,000, reach 10 people, and which is roughly about 55% of the market, but reach them twice. You see what I'm saying? So the frequency is the number of times. When you want to have high frequency, and keep in mind that our budgets are fixed, meaning the amount of money we spend doesn't just grow to whatever we need it to be, we're going to have to sacrifice uh, coverage, or sometimes we may sacrifice and have a lower reach. Okay, all this has to be in a specified period of time. So it could be over a year, could be over 6 months, could be over 30 days. It all depends, but it's usually based on a year marketing plan. So the media plan is what guides our media selection. So basically, we say, well, we combine. It's based on cost, demographics, and our goal is to combine this into the most effective way to reach the largest number of people, potential customers, at the lowest cost. Like I said, it's all about budget. So, what are some problems with media planning? We don't always have enough information. Now, the sweeps period is a definition you should know because it's, I think, on the final exam. I'm not so sure how relevant it is these days, but what used to happen is 4 times a year, um, the Nielsen company used to do a what's known as a sweep. In other words, used to measure what people are watching on TV, and that used to come up and be the ratings. So companies used to save their best programming for sweeps periods. They would have the sexiest shows. It would have the most engaging shows, the most what do you call it, exciting shows. It would have all these, so to fight for the audience, because these numbers during the sweeps periods, these ratings would be used to to determine how much they would charge. The networks would charge for commercials during those shows. But it's very hard to measure effectiveness because can't always track traditional media to actual results. So an ad on the Super Bowl for Chevy, it's very hard to measure how many actual sales were because of that Super Bowl ad. And we don't have the time to do the in-depth research that's necessary. A lot of times, media budgets and media planning has to be done very quickly, or in order to for the campaign to be executed. You don't need to know this. One of the things you do need to know is this graph, which shows that first we analyze the market, we establish the media objectives. From the media objectives, we develop strategy, development, and how we implement that strategy to meet the objectives. And then we evaluate the results and see where we are and how well we did. But we first have to start with market analysis. And what that means is, what are people reading? What are people watching? How do they interact with media? What media plays an important part in their life? Now, the other things you need to know is something called the index number. And this is secondary research, meaning that this stuff has already been done by other companies like MRI and Simmons. And an index tells us how above normal, how above average, I'm sorry, above average a market is, or how below average. So 100 equals average, right? So an index of 100 means that, so if we're looking, let's start again. If we're looking to target males 18 to 24 years of age, we want a market that is very rich in 18 to 24-year-old males. So we have to set a benchmark. So let's say that in the state of New York, 18 to 24 males represent, I believe I actually know this, they represent about 48% of the market. They're more female identifying people in the market than males. So, but if we want to do 18 to 24, we have to identify where is the largest um, concentration that is above 100. So if we find a market, I don't know, I'm making this up. Let's say Queens. Okay, so let's say Queens, and we see that Queens is has an index for 18 to 24-year-old males of 120. That means it's 20% above average. And or if you were 80, it would mean it's 20% below average. Where 100 means it's average. Average, meaning it represents, mirrors the population. Okay, so this is just a general index. We can look at internal factors and stuff. I don't. This doesn't belong in this place, but okay. So then we have three other indices that we should look at. The principle is the same. A survey of buying power index tells people, media planners, how much value there is in a market, meaning how much buying power. So let's say you earn $100,000 in New York or $100,000 in Florida. Taxes in New York are 40% because there's a city, state, and federal tax. In Florida, they don't have city or state taxes. So that same 100,000, let's say only gets taxed at 25%. So in Florida, you pay $25,000 in taxes on 100,000, which gives you $75,000 left. In New York, you have $60,000 left because you're paying 40% taxes. So therefore, you have $15,000 more money to spend. Therefore, just as a general example, you have more buying power for $100,000 in Florida than in New York because you keep more money. So basically, buying power isn't just how much money you make, but it's how much you can buy with that money. Same thing goes for expensive. Florida has, let's say, cheaper rents, and New York City has more expensive rents. Transportation, food. So after we take all these expenses out, how much money is left in the consumer's pockets? That's their buying power because you can't buy with money you don't have. So that's one. And if you're selling luxury goods or high end goods, you want a demographic where there is a high value or a lot of buying power that consumers have. So the brand development index, the BDI, is usage by a brand. So, for example, it's not laundry detergent, it's Tide, Gain, whatever else, Cheer, whatever's out there. So, if it's a low brand development index, then maybe that's an area you can go to increase usage of your brand. If the competition has high usage and you have low, then you can develop your brand with comparative advertising against your competition. But what if the whole laundry detergent category is very low? That's the category development index. So in the brand development, you're actually talking about brands within a category. In a category development, you're talking about the category itself, not necessarily the brands. So if you have for people, let's say, do a lot of laundry detergent, they do a lot of laundry in a certain area, and you see that the category for powder detergents versus liquid detergents is much higher. Maybe you want to develop the liquid detergent category. You do not need to know the math. You're welcome. Okay. This is a good chart that sums up basically what I said. So the media objectives, which you do need to know, have the following thing. You have to determine specific media objectives. That's how you establish them. They have to lead to attainment of okay, so designed to lead to attainment of attainment of communication and marketing objectives. What does that mean? It means that your marketing communication objectives, oops, I'm sorry, are to sell the product or bring awareness to a certain brand or a certain demographic, okay? And the media objectives have to reach that demographic. So your marketing and communications objectives establish the foundation for how you're going to start looking at media. You have to have media to deliver the communications and marketing objectives. And what goals can be accomplished through media strategies? Not every goal can be accomplished through media strategy. So, for example, there may be goals, and again, this isn't my forte, but there are goals that you can't do through media. You can reach awareness, you can do reach, frequency, you can do comparison advertising, but you might not be able to do certain things. For example, I'm thinking of one right now. You might not be able to improve time spent on a call if you call customer service. That has nothing to do with media strategies, but it may be a marketing objective. So you're looking at the media mix has to do with how you're going to combine it. You may do traditional with digital, and then you may do paid with social media, with video. Okay. You have to decide how much of the market are you going to cover. Okay. Um, geographically, scheduling has to do with how often you're going to put the ads out, your reach and frequency, and how often is recency. So let's look at this uh, as you go through this. Darn it, I'm sorry. Okay, so this chart right here gives us a very, very um, visual description of what we are actually going to, we've been discussing. So this part right here is the population. You see this? This dark blue, whatever color it is. Now, this is the population that does not include your target market. So these are the people you do not want to reach. Okay. The target market is in yellow. So it's here and here. The media coverage is here. So if you take this and overlap it on this, you will see that over here you have, as they say, full market coverage. Over here, you see this yellow part here? That yellow part is not covered by your media selection, but you get more focus probably in this, or your budget may not be big enough. In this one, the red, media overexposure means you reached people who will never buy your product. So that is called waste. Happens all the time. You may put ads in a certain media vehicle, and in addition to your target audience, for example, you may put an ad on Super Bowl targeting men, but let's say 15% of the people who watch the program, the sports, are women, and women are never going to buy your product for whatever reason. Um, well, those 15% of 100 million people are waste. So that's like 15 million people you're reaching, but they'll never buy your product. It's almost impossible not to have waste. Different media have different degrees of waste, but there's always going to be waste. So it's very important to limit the waste, but understand you can't eliminate it. Okay, so we're going to do also the three types of scheduling. So scheduling is continuity, flighting, and pulsing. Let me show you the. So continuity, think of the word continuous. So with continuity, right here, the red, you're running the same schedule for the entire year without any changes. So if you have $1.2 million budget, you're running $100,000 a month for 12 months. No changes. There are products like that. For example, diapers. Babies are going to need diapers, the same number of diapers in February as they do in March, as they do in January. Okay. Now, flighting also has to do with seasonality. So as you can see, these empty spaces are when you do not run the ads. Now, there are a lot of ad things that are seasonal. So, for example, let's say you have a business that rents sailboats in Central Park. Okay, there are businesses that do that. Well, and obviously this is, but from September to November, probably December too, you're probably not going to run ads because no one is going to rent a sailboat in the freezing cold. So, what you do with flighting is you have periods when you advertise and you have periods when you do not advertise. In contrast, there are products that sell the same all year round. So let's say Snickers bars. But then there are times of the year when Snickers bars or candy, let's say, sells more. Valentine's Day, the holiday season. All right. So what happens with pulsing is you're going to run your same budget, the same as in continuity. However, there are going to be times throughout the year when you're going to increase the budget. That's when sales are peaking. Okay. So Valentine's Day for candy, Mother's Day, Halloween, um, the winter holidays we're experiencing right now. These may be periods when you may want to increase your budget because you sell more. Okay, so continuity, flighting, and pulsing um, are important to this chapter. Oh, sorry. This is just another overview of implementation. We discussed a lot of it. You do not need to know this. Now, the three things you need to know about reach is right here in this diagram, but I'll go over it. There's unduplicated reach, duplicated reach are the two things about reach, and we'll talk about program rating in a minute. Oops, sorry. So duplicated reach means that you're using two media vehicles. So let's say the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and you're running the same ad in both publications in the business section for, let's say, Dell computers. Now, people who read the Wall Street Journal will also read, not all of them, but some people read the Wall Street Journal, also read the New York Times business section. Therefore, you're not reaching, um, you not only have reach, but the people who read both newspapers are in the middle. And that's not reach, that's frequency. Because the person who saw the ad in the New York Times also sees the ad in the Wall Street Journal. So what you have here is the reach of the two, let's say, newspapers. These are people who only read the Wall Street Journal. These are people who only read the New York Times. And these are people who read both. So what you need to do is the duplicated reach is frequency. And this here, unduplicated reach, meaning without people seeing it twice, is actually, forgive me, is actually reach. So you have to take these people out to get the actual reach. Now, for broadcast media, so the two ways that we look at this. I'm sorry, let me just do this. I'm trying to find the CPM. So you'll see it in the book. For print media, you have something known as CPM, cost per thousand, because let's say you have 1 million people in the Wall Street Journal and only 650,000 people in the New York Times. And a full page ad in the New York Times costs 150,000, and a full page ad in the Wall Street Journal costs 98,000. Well, it's kind of hard to compare these numbers. So what media people do is they say, well, okay, we understand all this, but how much does it cost to reach 1,000 people? That's the cost per thousand. And it's called CPM. M stands for mille, which means 1,000. Don't ask me why it's not CPT, cost per thousand, but just isn't. Um, so we buy media in the print, not newspaper, but print, we pay on a cost per thousand. Newspapers, which they're still around, quite a few of them, they charge by column inch and excuse me, and broadcast media, meaning TV shows, so on and so forth, they go by rating points. Okay, a rating point is 1% of the population who watch the show. So if there are 150,000, 100, I'm sorry, I'm just going to use round numbers, 100 million households in the US, and 1%, and you have one rating, 1% rating for a show, that means 1 million households watched it. Now, as you can see, this is very traditional, this is very old school, and it doesn't reflect the multi-screen environment we live in. So this is just an overview. Don't you can hide it. Yes. So here's the cost per thousand. Okay. Oops, I clicked hide. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened to it? 1 second. I'm going to reset the presentation. Forgive me. Okay, here we go. So the cost per thousand is for how you pay for print media. And in broadcast media, you pay cost per rating point. And for newspapers, it's by the column inch rate. One last definition, pass along rate. So give you this very example. Certain media like magazines, they last longer than any other form because people keep magazines, they save magazines. If you go to a doctor's office, they have a lot of magazines in the waiting room. So the pass along readership, meaning how many people read that magazine. So someone has a subscription and they put the magazine in on their living room coffee table. Well, how many other people are going to come in and and lend the magazine out? Are you going to lend the magazine out? How many other people are going to read it? So the pass along is the number of people who read a magazine, but they don't buy it. They borrow it or they run across it somewhere. You you can be familiar with this, but it's not mandatory. And that's it. This was a very brief overview of the media chapter. The quiz will be definitional for the most part. Reach, frequency. There may be some questions on, uh, for example, Coke is placing ads on TV. I'm sorry, Coke is placing ads on the show Big Bang Theory. Big Bang Theory is the medium, the vehicle. So you need to know it's the vehicle. You need to understand that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it's going to be a lot of definitions. You need to know flighting and the scheduling, flighting, continuity, those three. So, and pulsing. This is about it for this chapter. The next chapter that I will be posting will be chapter 13, which is very short. Chapter 14, which is even shorter or just as short. And then we will have sales promotion, which again will be almost all definitional. And then we have Public relations. Public relations is a little more involved. I'm not so sure we'll do chapter 18, but if we don't, it's not on the test. So any chapters we didn't do are not on the final exam. So right now, I'm going to be coughing a little more, but I'm also going to be writing and posting the quiz on chapter 10. So it will be quiz number 7, as I stated. It'll be your last one. I will communicate due dates and everything by email. Um, and I will look at posting any discussions that are left. But the last day of class is December 21st. All right. So good luck on your next quiz. If you have any questions or anything, I'm always available. And again, I hope you had a very nice holiday. I don't know why I was looking at the microphone that I have here. I have this microphone right here while I was speaking, but I don't know. It's post holiday silliness, I guess. I wish you everyone a great remainder of your weekend.